Next Galaxy Man Show interview. So for my very next guest is this incredible actor known by the name of Michael Coward, who's in this film at the moment called Escape the City, coming out May 12th. So I'm about to add Michael into the live now to have a chat with Michael about his film that he's in, and he's playing the incredible role of Brad in Escape the City. So yeah, let's add Michael in and have a chat with Michael. Here we go. Just waiting on Michael to join the live. Here we go. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Jacob, how are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Michael, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. How's things on your end?
Yeah, really good, thanks. I just want to say first up, thank you so much for taking the time to join my show. It's such an incredible pleasure having you on the show for today. So to people that don't know who you are, Michael, if you can give like a bit of example for who you are and what you do as a person, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm an actor. That's my big thing at the moment. I've been working in film for over 3 years now. I have a few feature films coming out that I'm very excited about. I've done a lot of work on short films, that sort of thing. Previous to that, I was a powerlifter, competitive powerlifter, and previous to that, I was a bodybuilder. So I've sort of just found myself in acting, and I've been loving it. I look like really excited to keep going now.
Awesome. So we'll dive right into the questions now, Michael. So for my very first question, so you're actually in this feature film coming out May 12th called Escape the City, and you play the role of Brad in the feature film. What was the whole experience like for you getting to film on this film called Escape the City? Like how fun did you have filming?
Escape the City was really fun. The rest of the cast was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed working with all of them. Alex, the director and writer of the story, knew exactly what he wanted, wrote a great story. I really enjoyed working with him. But one of the biggest, like outside of all that, the regular things you expect people to say working on a good movie, is the location's really cool. We got to work in an abandoned skate rink, which had to clean up some needles and stuff prior to getting started, and that was the first location for the whole movie. So we jumped straight into the deep end. But outside of that, like, it was just a really, really fun project to be on. Enjoyed all the people, and I just enjoyed being Brad, actually. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a second, but it was just an overall really fun project to be a part of.
So on to our next question. So how can you describe Brad in one word? Like what's Brad like for you?
I'd say protective. And to go further in that, it's just because once you see the film, you can tell that Brad is sort of the guardian of his friend group. Really, like, there's a deep personal, emotional caring to his. He does it because he's friends, not because it's his job or anything, but also because he can. He has a deep background with military. He just happens to come home and he needs to put them to use. So I think protective is a very sort of perfect one-word description of Brad.
So on to my very next question. So what makes Brad relatable for like people that, what makes Brad relatable? Like for people that haven't like seen Brad in action yet, how can people relate to Brad?
I think, going off of my previous answer, I think one of the most relatable things about Brad is that you do want to look after your friends, like to the extent, especially if they're in danger, like certain scenarios in this film. You really notice his, like, he puts everything to the side to look after his friends, even if it's at his own peril, or if there's something like that's not exactly a great thing to do. He's putting them first, because you can see, like, there's other scenes in the film which clearly outline that, like, show the friendship between the group, and where he doesn't have to look after them, and the reason why he does look after them is because of those scenes. So it really develops nicely, and you can really empathize in that scenario, knowing that you would want to look after your friends in a situation like this.
That's cool. So on to our very next question. So why should people watch Escape the City? Like, what makes Escape the City a film for people to watch?
I really enjoy, like, I haven't seen the final cut of Escape the City or anything, so this is a big sell for me too. Is more so because it's the apocalyptic zombie type film, firstly. That's the overarching type feel of it. But within the writing and the shots and everything, it's definitely going to come off as more of an action drama, a little bit more depth and excitement to, like, a genre like that, where a lot of the time it's just a horror gore fest. So you actually care about the characters a little bit more. The story develops a lot. You see a life before the zombies sort of throw things off. And so you actually get invested in the whole story before things get exciting. So you actually care about the outcome, what happens with the group of friends, and where it all ends up.
That's cool. So on to our very next question. So as you mentioned, you're in another feature film, and it's called, hopefully I get this name right. So it's called Over the Next Horizon. What was it like being on set for this one? And, like, how much fun did you have on set for this feature film, apart from the Escape the City?
This one was very fun in its own way, very different to Escape the City, because the whole time was pretty much like camping, really.
That's cool.
And funnily enough, it is an apocalypse film again, but this one's well to the other end of the apocalypse. It's happened, we've survived, and we're camping out in the middle of nowhere, because it's as you can imagine, like the hot zones are in the highly populated areas and whatnot. So it was actually quite relaxing to be out there. It's like a little camping trip. And this was so a little less, like, for the majority of it, a little more drama, a little less action. So different feel, but very similar overall.
Awesome. So because you're playing the role of Peter in this one, what was it like getting to play the role of Peter? Like, how can you describe Peter in, like, one word, like, for Over the Horizon?
For Peter, it's probably leader. Okay. Because it's so established in this film at this point, it's clear that he has everything's been planned by him for a long time. He's put everything personal aside, and he's made all of his decisions for the rest of his people. So instead of having to be protecting and putting things on the line for his friends, like with Brad, he's been established in as the leader, and he's proclaimed, so he gets to make the choices, and so it's a little bit more defined.
So on to our very next question. So what makes Peter a relatable character for people to watch? Like, what makes Peter stand out the most for Over the Horizon?
I think similar to what I just went through. It's definitely like you can see again his friendships within the group, but you recognize when he has to make the decisions for the group rather than what he wants. And he has to make quick choices for the best possibilities for the group. You can't risk making mistakes because everything's on the line for his society. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that you relate to, is putting your own personal things aside for the betterment of your, say, family or friends, that group.
So on to our very next question. So if you could survive anywhere, like in an apocalyptic world, where would you want to go to? Like, what weapons or where would you go to keep safe?
The whole sort of setup. Well, I'm originally from a country sort of area myself, so my first step outright would be to move into a rural area, like we sort of said, for Over the Next Horizon. Just being removed from the large population areas, depending on what sort of apocalypse it is, it's just a much easier way to establish yourself in a safe environment. You can make farms or stay away from zombies, something like that. Weapons, I'll grab whatever I can. I'm not going to be picky in an apocalypse. But, especially even for Escape the City. A little bit of gun training to prepare for that. So now I'm quite comfortable with handguns or rifles or shotguns. And so now I'll take it. I'll take what you got.
Yes. Awesome. So on to our next question. So why should people watch Over the Horizon? What makes Over the Horizon a film to watch?
With Alex, the big thing that I'm really impressed with Over the Next Horizon was Alex makes a lot of films, and I've always been very impressed with his production. It's very impressive. He does everything himself. Because he's the lead in the film too. So seeing him jump into a scene, set the camera up for the next scene, get the angle, jump back into the scene, and then cut it himself. It's very impressive to see something so guerrilla pulled off pulled off in such a good way. I'm very confident it's going to come out looking fantastic, and knowing that about the film is even more impressive. It adds a whole nother layer to it, especially with an apocalypse type feeling to it. Just adds to it.
That's cool. So on to our very next question. So what made you decide as a person, and especially as an actor, to get into acting in the first place?
Well, like I sort of mentioned up at the top of the interview, I had started my previous endeavors was bodybuilding and then powerlifting. It was a very physical sort of, pretty much from my entire life up until now, I was a very physically competitive guy. And then after I decided there was enough for me in powerlifting, for some reason, I just knew I wanted to do acting. It was artistic and emotional. There definitely have a days where the physical component comes in handy, like especially with the apocalyptic roles, the fighting scenes, all that sort of thing. So I'm very grateful to have that under my sleeve. But it feels fantastic to have a change. And I've been really enjoying it. Like it's especially with everyone that I get to work with. I've loved everyone I've been able to work on set with.
Awesome. So on to our very next question. So if you could have any dream role in TV or movie, what dream role would you want and why?
Oh, this is a tough one. Let's say, I'm a big fan of Jake Gyllenhaal. So just off the top of my head, there must be hundreds of roles that I'd love.
Yeah.
But just off the top of my head, Jake Gyllenhaal's role in Prisoners, I loved. I thought that was a fantastic movie. He nailed it. And something, because I'd love to sort of delve into a little bit more emotional depth like that as well. And clearly he has very physical, his character's story is very physical as well. But to be able to portray that while adding a deep emotional background into it and portraying that so well would be a fantastic challenge to be able to try next and move into next.
That's cool. So on to our very next question. So what advice would you give someone wanting to get into acting? And yeah, what advice would you give someone?
Well, personally, it's what worked really well for me. Like I said, like I just jumped into this, and so what worked really well for me, I just dived headfirst in. After about 2 months of looking into how to find jobs, I ended up getting one. And before overthinking it, I took the role, went down to the Gold Coast, took a couple of days, shot it, and I'm sure if I watch it back again now, I might be a little bit embarrassed of how it turned out. But there was nothing better for me to be able to do than just start. Especially like no amount of like coaching is fantastic, but it's a completely different thing to just being on set. So I could have coached for months and months, but we would have ended up feeling the same nervousness on set. So I'm glad I did my first project and then got coaching to perfect it and polish it afterwards. And now I'm being able to develop in between films each time, get more comfortable, and just being on set has been the best experience. So anyone that's looking into getting started, just go for it. It's been really fun.
So on to our very next question. So with getting physical roles like in apocalyptic kind of world, kind of like films, how do you keep up your fitness? Like, how do you keep up the fitness kind of stuff in those kind of films?
It is, to put it in a simple way of sort of like what Dwayne Johnson does. It's probably a good example. Whenever set time is, I'll probably wind back the alarm clock 4 hours from that. I'll find the nearest gym to the location of set, and I'll train there for whatever 1 or 2 hours, be able to shower, have a snack, and then be there on set half an hour early. So there's no chance I'm going to miss my gym session, and maintain my fitness throughout weeks of shooting, or whatever it ends up being. And then prepare ahead for some snacks and stuff so you don't get starving on the day. So just preparing ahead.
Awesome. So on to our very next question. So what are like the positive and negatives into the whole acting industry, and how do you get through those like negative moments as an actor?
Yeah, sure. I guess one of the initially biggest negatives for me was not being able to instantly do every role I wanted to, because naturally, like I just have a natural typecast. It's much easier to jump into while I was establishing myself as an actor. And like I would have loved like an opportunity to do like a much deeper emotional or even like just a few roles that I would have loved. I wasn't like, maybe because say it was a role where I was a drug addict. I'd have to sell myself to the casting director, I'd have to probably drop 30 kilos of weight to be able to be like an option for that role. And while doing other roles that want me to have that weight, can't exactly do that right away. So it's just the frustration of wanting to do everything, but really needing to focus in on one or two, and knowing exactly what you need to do. And then when you're ready to change, you can switch it up and move into something else.
Awesome. So on top of your last question, Michael, so what's like next for you? Like any projects that you'd like to announce on the show or anything?
Well, firstly, Escape the City has moved to May 28th. Alex told me he had a little bit more polishing to do. But from what he sent me, it's looking really good. I'm very excited to see that. I'm very, very excited. And especially with how it's almost a Memento type film. It's not laid out in the traditional format. So expect a little bit of a change to the traditional film viewing style. But outside of that, I'm shooting Aurora and the Nexus Guardians at the end of the year, another feature film I'm really excited for. And so keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited for that one too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I just want to say, lastly, thank you so much for appearing on my show again. Was such a pleasure having you on the show today. Do you have like any last final thoughts that you'd like to share to people on the show?
Oh, thank you for having me. Firstly, thank you for having me yourself. And thank you for everyone watching. Really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to reach out and chat to me, I'd love it. I'm very open, and I love being a part of the acting industry, and look forward to hearing anyone that would like to know more.